What is going on, you lovely people from Game Dev Underground? My name is Tim Ruswick, and today we're talking about a really cool subject because, art is something that comes up a lot in game development because there are a lot of artists in game development, but a lot of game developers are programmers. A lot of people start from the programming aspect, and I think while artists need programmers if they're not programmers themselves, programmers also need artists. So I figured we'd cover both of those, but we're going to start with how programmers can find art. And I've done this a couple different ways over the years in several different games. I've made my own art. I've contracted out. I've done a bunch of stuff. So I'm going to talk about the different ways that I've gotten art for my game and pros and cons of each. So I think number one out of everything is probably teaming up with people, right? So if you team up with someone else, then you guys build a game together, and usually it's a profit share, or it works better if it's not commercial. That way you don't have any personal issues to worry about. But teaming up is great because it means that neither party has to pay any money. It means that you guys can work together and maybe create something awesome. Some of the cons for a team, though, are that when teams are working for free or even revenue share model, sometimes it can be hard to get people to work. You have to be very careful when you team up with someone to make sure they're very self-motivated, make sure they don't have shiny object syndrome, or you're going to get left in the dust. Because I've had a lot of teams, a lot of partners even in business that just they get bored, or they stop communicating, or it just doesn't work out for whatever reason. So be very careful if you team up with someone. Make sure they're self-motivated, make sure they're going to stick with you all the way, and make sure that they are compatible with your personality, because that can be a real issue. I know for me, back in my super introvert days, working with very extroverted, very opinionated people was sometimes very hard for me, and so I've understood that now. It's definitely a lot easier because I'm not as quiet, and I voice my concerns, and generally the people that I pick are very good with compromises. We can they can have an opinion, I can have an opinion. They can be completely conflicting, and we can say, okay, well, why don't we try this, try your way, see what works. If we still don't agree, we say, okay, why don't we do this my way, and we'll do that your way, and it always works out. But you got to have the right people to make that work out, because if you don't, you can end up at a stalemate, or you can end up demotivating teammates or whatever. That's teaming up. Number two, I think, is hiring someone, contracting them. This is actually my favorite method of creating art, because I do not have the art skill that I want at this point in time. A lot of the art that I can do is very simplistic 2D. That is usually why a lot of my games end up being minimalistic mobile games, because that is about the extent of my art skill. I've started practicing in Illustrator and stuff, but I'm not quite where I want to be. So I think contracting someone that can do the art that I want, if I have a game that requires that, is my favorite. Contracting is my favorite across not just art, but across all the different professions, because when I'm paying someone, I have complete control over the end product. Where if someone is working with me for free and they produce something and it's not good, it's a lot harder to tell them, no, this needs to be different, this needs to be different, especially if you got to go 2 or 3 times or something. But if I'm paying them, I don't mind doing that at all. We just make sure that we're paid, and everybody gets paid, and it's not a problem, because I'm paying for the product that I want, and it usually gets done the way that I want. A lot of the contractors don't usually have opinions. Or if they do have opinions, they don't usually voice them. Sometimes they do. I've worked with contractors that have suggestions and stuff. But a lot of times stuff just gets done the way you want it to get done, and if you know how to effectively, communicate, then you can get stuff done very easily. The downside, of course, is that it costs money. Not everybody has money to spend, especially if you're doing it for a hobby and you're not planning on making any financial remedies for it. But I mean, those are the pros and cons. I think pro for me is control, con is the money. But it's one of my favorite methods for sure. Third is the asset store. And I say asset store, but I don't specifically mean Unity Asset Store. There are hundreds of websites that sell art. There are all kinds of websites. If you literally Google game art or 2D game art or 3D models or whatever you're looking for, 3D tank, whatever you need, you can find it. You can buy it online. So the pro is you get a model for significantly cheaper than hiring someone to build it for you. The con is that a lot of times it's up to you to kind of define the theme and make sure everything fits within your world. Because if a lot of the different assets that you're using don't always mesh well together, then your game can look unpolished. It can look weird in a sense. So finding stuff that matches can be complicated when you buy assets from various places. I had this issue with my game Black Rim. I bought some icons, and the icons were great, but they didn't match with the artwork that I bought for the spaceships and stuff. And same thing when I bought the crew member characters. And I bought all three of these packages separately, but it felt kind of weird because they didn't all match together in the same art style. So, it's a trade-off. It's definitely significantly cheaper, and you can get very high quality stuff for a low cost. Like the icons that I bought, I think it was like $19 for 300 and some sci-fi icons. And there's no way I could have paid somebody that to make those. That would have cost me hundreds of dollars, if not thousands of dollars, from the right artist. But so the pros are that you can get awesome stuff for cheap. The cons is maybe a little bit hard to match. And the last and final one, I was going to go with 3, but we're going to make it 4 because I think everybody has an artist inside them. So number 4, I think, is creating art yourself. Now, a lot of programmers are going to say, but I'm not an artist. And again, I have a whole video on being very careful about what you say you are or you are not, about defining your identity or your personal story. Because I think everybody can do art. Everybody has some form of art. If you look at a lot of, I haven't showed off a lot of my games, but by the way, I have a portfolio site coming soon I'm working on. It's going to have all my games because you guys keep asking for my games, so that's going to be awesome. But a lot of my games they're built with the constraints in mind. They're built with, okay, I have this limitation, so I'm going to build this game around my limitation. Phylophobia, for example, the main character is literally a cube, and the game at first used 4 colors, just 4 colors, 4 flat colors. And this was based around, my art style. I don't have this complex, crazy ability to make very detailed things, so I stuck with some basic shapes. Excuse me. And I made it work. And that's what you got to do sometimes. And I think that if you want to make art, if you want to do your art for your game, I think you should try. And I think you should practice. And your first stuff is not going to be very good, but you got to keep going, keep making it happen. The more you do it, the better at it you get. And I think you should always look at it as an option. If you want to create, like, let's say, I don't know, an FPS game, and you're not that great at, interior design or world building, that kind of thing, like any kind of 3-dimensional level building, it's going to suck at first, and it's going to be hard to build all that stuff out. But I would recommend that you try. I would recommend that if it's something that you want to do, you can get better at it, no matter who you think you are or what you think you're good at. You can always get better at different things, and you might surprise yourself. So, obviously the downside is it's going to take you a lot longer than just working with someone else, but sometimes the time is worth the result and the stuff that you learned. So that's all I got today. If you've got another method that you use to find an artist or get art for your game, leave it down below. If you have any opinions on the stuff I've mentioned here, leave those in a comment as well, because I'm learning just like you guys are. I'm no fancy guru, just a dude trying to help game developers and learn some stuff on my journey. So until next time, I'm Tim Ruswick, and I will see you guys in the next video.